There are a lot of people who have lived in the history of people. Some of them were astonishingly small. Benjamin Button, that was a small little guy. And I've already beaten Fallout 3 as him, so I need some way to take that idea to the next level. Can you beat Fallout 4 as Andre the Giant? You're probably wondering what I mean when I say as Andre the Giant. The general idea here, the core concept, is the opposite of my Can You Beat Fallout 3 as Benjamin Button video. In that video, every 15 minutes, I shrunk my character size by 5%. In this video, as I said, I'm doing the opposite. Every 15 minutes, I increase my size by 10%. If you're wondering why I put Andre the Giant in the title, it's because he had gigantism, the condition that basically means you never stop growing. Seemed appropriate. Unlike the Fallout 3 video I've already mentioned, the timer starts immediately. It doesn't matter where or when I am when the timer ends. After 15 minutes is up, your boy grows up a bit. I tried a little to make myself look like Andre the Giant, but I couldn't be bothered to pull up a picture of him, and to be honest, I didn't care if I looked anything like a giant. I breezed through Vault-Tech's interview, named me, and spread out special points. Without putting too much thought into it, this felt like a fairly fair distribution of points for the 8th wonder of the world. War happened, I left my wife and my life behind, fled to the vault, rode down into hell, got my blue and yellow attire. This dumb cutscene ate up a bunch of my time. I emerged and began making my way through the vault. For once in my life, I can actually play through the tutorial section of Fallout 4 like a normal person. I can pick up the security baton. I can step on a puny bug, take damage, use the gun, open the door, pick up the Pip-Boy, and escape the vault as if this was a normal playthrough. It isn't, trust me. Before escaping, I'd use the player.setScale command to increase my size by 5%. Right after I got to the surface, I fixed that problem by setting it up to 10% like I was supposed to. By this point, there's a chance that you're curious about where the challenge comes from. You're bigger, so what? You know what? I'll tell you what. As I get bigger, a series of metaphysical and sociological changes begin to unfurl like a fruit by the meter stick candy fruit roll. As I take my place as an absolute unit, I'll be taller, I'll run faster, I'll jump higher. I might do more damage with melee weapons, I'm not entirely sure about that. And, most importantly, I'll take up more space. You might not think much of that now, but at a certain point, if left to grow unchecked by imaginary chains, you would become so big that even when crouching, you can't open doors, or you'll clip through the ceiling whenever you're indoors, and won't be able to see where you're going. Those are probably problems that may or may not possibly arise. After doing stuff in Sanctuary, to fill time while I explained stuff, I meandered over to Red Rock Filling Station, ignored the dog, and arrived in Concord. Time was of the essence. This was almost like an inverse speed run. If I'm not fast enough, I will slowly reach a point where the game doesn't function properly. Also, most of the time, the only time the timer stops is when the game crashes, or if I pause the game to do something involving substances that are now legal in Michigan. Clearing out the Museum of Freedom was as simple can be. I'd already begun noticing my increased movement speed, and you can clearly see how much bigger I am than Preston. The goal here is to be able to look down at Preston the way he looks down at our universe. It's cute that you think Preston isn't real and he isn't watching you right now. Outside, I entered the power armor, made sure I was still slightly larger than the game wanted me to be, ripped open a few backs. If you cut off someone's back, does the back now have a front and back? I showed off my power in the most delightful way possible when I eradicated a death claw, returned to Preston, hit puberty, and set off for Diamond City. Quickly, and with the precision of the guy I overheard at a liquor store a few weeks ago who once thought about becoming a doctor, I navigated Trash Can Carla's sea of inventory items and fun time trinkets. I bought a bat from her. With that bat, I killed Wolfgang and his pups, bartered with Trudy, briefly, broke her skull, turned off her son's life, and continued on my way. The bat seemed to be gooder than I expected it would be, which was why I stopped by Megamart for incredible prices on everyday household objects like phone cords and replacement bristles for a toothbrush you picked up at an estate sale a few years ago. In the battle between almost death and barely alive was where it hit me what was happening. I became very lucid and aware of how my size was impacting my ability to make my way through buildings. and this was only at 20%, or I guess 120% depending on how you look at it. I had no concept of what potential problems would arise if I got to 2 or even 3 times normal height. That's a lie. I fucked around with New Vegas' console commands to see if I could beat the game as a 1-inch tall man, and a couple other odd ideas. One involved being gigantic. Let's just say it didn't end well, or begin well, or be well at any point in the experience. Back to Fallout 4 though, I helped the Brotherhood of Steel with their ghoul problem as I pressed farther south towards Diamond City. I still wasn't sure which group would be best to work with. There are a lot of different quests and scenarios to consider before siding with anyone, especially now. Because I was in the area, I decided to discover a couple locations early to save myself some time later. Green Tech and Bunker Hill, common places human males and females gather to interact with each other. A raider politely ran up to me with a bladed tire iron. It was real good at removing body parts. I was now at 30%. There will be a little on-screen thing showing my size at all times, so if I don't mention it, just look at that thing. Another crash happened. Those happened more than usual. I doubt it had anything to do with what I was doing to the game, making it hurt like this. Because God couldn't possibly be annoyed at my messing with his creations, I thought to kill all the missionaries at the Half Circle Dome stage festival. I can pack a punch and hit people real hard with a bullet fired from a gun, but they can also do big damage to my oversized frame. Despite the armor I had throughout this run and the difficulty setting, I often found that I was taking more damage than I thought I should be. I never figured out why. Good Neighbor was briefly graced with my presence. I bonked Finn real good, got weirdly close-up shots of Cleo and myself, bartered a little, left, and entered Park Street Station. I began to notice these almost empty loading screens were happening more frequently and were lasting longer. Sometimes they were as long as 2 minutes. You know why that's bad. The Triggermen gave me slightly less resistance when I forced them to the next world than I thought they would. Same old story. Some of them die in one hit, others take multiple. They did more damage than I would have liked, but there were beds to sleep in after all the fighting stopped. Kneeing someone's fucking head into nothing was pretty satisfying though. Getting into the vault didn't go off without a hitch. There was a small error in communication. The Triggermen, soon to be rotting corpses, were the same as the others. No reason for them to be anything special. Something looked weird as I encroached on Dino's land, and there was the terminal. Turns out that when you're bigger than you're supposed to be, certain things in Fallout 4 don't work properly. Terminals being arguably the most significant. You can still use them, you just can't navigate with the mouse or see the screen. Thankfully, there aren't very many terminals that must be used. Another benefit to my wide girth is how long my arms are, and how far away I can be when I take off someone's bodily fluid holder. Skinny Malone died as he lived, covered in blood. Valentine rambled on. We escaped out into the Commonwealth, and my game crashed. At least I think it did. Around the 3-minute mark, I assumed this loading screen would slowly envelop the entire screen if I didn't take a stand against it and call in Uncle Task Manager to back over that weird little Fallout kid with his truck. Back in the game, I immediately got to work killing Skinny Malone and dying. Twice. I didn't reset the timer, even when I thought I had to do this again. That would have been lame. I checked to make sure I was still at 40% as I should be. Since the game crashed, fled to the vertical metal hill with Nick, and was outside just in time to go up to 50%. I now move breathtakingly quickly, and because I didn't go to Diamond City until after I rescued Nick, I didn't have to deal with Piper's bullshit. Time being the valuable resource it is, I swiftly navigated my way through a barter or two. I was mostly interested in stimpaks, and was now so tall that I can see the second floor of the building when standing up. Took my place among the stars of Fallout 4, ran through the charade of caring about my son, and had to find a way into Kelloggs House. I kinda wanted to talk to Mama Murphy about this, as she can tell you the location of a key to Kelloggs House. Or she unlocks the door with her mind? I'm not entirely sure of the details. Regardless, I stole the key off the mayor, tripped over a mailbox as I plummeted towards Earth, found what Kellogg was hiding, met Dogmeat, and ran towards Fort Hagen at breakneck speeds. On this bridge, as I beat feral ghouls to death with my oven mitt-sized hands, I considered actually trying to be Andre the Giant and punching things until they die. I didn't. That would have been hard. It's hard to decapitate someone with a karate chop. My plan for dealing with the synths inside Fort Hagen was, as always, to not deal with them as best I can. Reality is beginning to malfunction a bit. Elevators can barely handle my frame. I fought through the synths as best I could, mowed them down real good, could look the ceiling-mounted turrets right in the eye, was up to 70% bigger than you're supposed to be, and I finally found Kellogg. The fight was always meant to be fair, no drugs or reality-altering mechanics at play, just a giant and a cyborg fighting it out in the future. I noticed, as I looted Kellogg's very dead body, that it was becoming slightly difficult to get low enough to reach as many holes where he stuffed his goodies. Oh, and using Kellogg's terminal to open both doors and download information wasn't fun. Audio cues are your friend. If you use your ears to listen, you can hear when you hit the bottommost option in the terminal, and sort of work your way to the right option from there. Elevators are real unhappy with me inside them now. Outside, I discovered that I am now at the point in this challenge where jumping can realistically cause death. And these vertebrates were being weird, not sure what that was about. I could also jump gaps that you normally can't, and explore portions of the highway system that have long since been abandoned. Engaging in the normal human act of conversation is becoming more difficult as well. I'm so big that in order to start talking to someone, I have to crouch and press E in the small window of time where it appears as I'm standing up, so I don't accidentally pickpocket the person I'm trying to talk to. Dr. Amari in Good Neighbor was the one to get me inside Kelloggs Brain. Nothing too interesting. I moved faster than the memory platforms could appear. That was neat. I learned about teleportation, woke up from the fever dream, talked to Amari, ignored Nick, and was off to one of the most volatile locations in Fallout history. The speed at which I ran through the jungle was astonishing, but all that size wouldn't save me from someone else's suicide. I think his death hurt me more than it hurt him. After dying a few times, I led the suicider to Duke, a power armor-wearing nearby person. Duke survived the blast. He was clearly more than a match for me, so I left him be, ran through the glowing sea, died multiple times to childish automatons worshipping the flu, and entered Virgil's cave. He told me to track down a courser, and that's exactly what I did. Shortly after entering Green Tech, I hit puberty for the 9th time. This is where things started getting fun. One of the problems of my size is that my head and body clip through the ceiling of some buildings, and when that happens, because the weapon and crosshair are above an object that you can't shoot through, my attacks miss and do nothing unless I somehow get below the ceiling that's above me. This can be done by crouching, or the problem can be avoided by luring an enemy into an area with a higher ceiling or even no ceiling at all. Z247 had a spooky skull next to his name. In a matter of seconds, I removed that skull as well as his own, took the chip from his head that exploded all over the wall, and took it to Dr. Amari to see what could be done. What could be done? Nothing could be done. It was a waste of time. On the plus side, I'm now big enough to jump over the fence to get out of Good Neighbor the cool way. I was after the railroad beneath the Old North Church. Tracking them down was child's cake, easy as easy can be. The ghouls inside never stood a chance. I tried to jump over the underground wall, but that didn't work. Entered the super secret code, spoke to Desdemona, had the chip analyzed, ascended yet again, this time to the coveted 2.0 set scale, and returned to Virgil for the last time to get the transponder plans. Then came the difficult decision, who to side with. I decided to go with the Minutemen. Some guides consider them to be the faction to side with if you're looking for speed. I figured with my insane speed and power, traveling to settlements and clearing out areas would be easy. Before I could use the teleporter, I had to help the settlers at Ten Pines Bluff. The only thing of note that happened on my way out there was I encountered a mole rat wearing a suicide vest. Talking to the settler was annoying. He was sleeping, so I had to carefully crouch and press E at the right time to not stick my giant hand down his pants looking for hidden treats. He sent me to kill the raiders at Corvega Assembly Plant. Rather than use brute force, I sat somewhere where I shouldn't have been able to reach and blasted the raiders with a laser musket. That was a waste of time. Those raiders didn't matter. Inside? Nice. Inside, I had to remain crouched almost the entire time to not clip through the ceiling. But even now, when I'm crouched, I'm still far bigger than everyone else. That size doesn't make melee combat any more fun though. Something threw me off, and I wasted several valuable minutes trying to get to the raider on my compass. Jared died. I left, set my size up to 2.1. The settler was pleasured after what I did for him. I returned to Preston, gave the plans to Sturgis, and got the first part of the interceptor built. Building the rest of the components went off almost without a hitch. I lacked the biometric scanner necessary to build the console. I wasn't about to visit a hospital to just maybe find one. I bought one from Myrna in Diamond City, finished the teleporter, got it all wired up, and teleported into the Institute. Loading the network scanner into the terminal, running the program, and ejecting it took some thought. The pneumatic traveling container barely functioned with my head sticking through the top of it, and at long last, I was reunited with my boy. Here's the thing about that, I couldn't reach him. He was sitting on the floor, and was low enough that even when crouching, I couldn't talk to him. Father won't come through unless I talk to Sean. You can't progress into the Institute unless you talk to Sean and then Father, in theory, at least. As I've said many times, things break when you get big. The walls, for instance, are now a suggestion. My size and reach allows me to VATS attack Father through the wall to kill him from the other side of the wall. But that doesn't solve the problem. The elevator backup doesn't function. What I had to do was what I like to think of as the slinky technique. Simple to do, easy to break. Kill Father through the wall, stand up, and sit on the couch on the floor above you. Get off the couch, and now you're on that level. Do it again, and you're up another level. For some reason, despite Father being dead, nobody hated me. Maybe it was because of a sneak attack. I don't care why. All that mattered was that I could ride the central tube back up to the entrance, if you could call it that, of the Institute, use the teleporter to get back outside, and be done with the Institute for the time being. I gave the tape back to Sturgis, spoke to Preston about a settlement, and got to work. This settler was nice, for a moment anyway. I almost had the rare opportunity to look up at someone while I spoke. She went back to bed, forcing me to fit myself into their elevated living box. To give you an idea of how quickly I move, it took me about 35 seconds to get from Oberlin Station to the Coast Guard Pier. Or, put another way, I move 2.2 times faster than normal since I'm 2.2 times bigger than I should be. The average super mutant can go down with a single swing from my axe. The blade itself does most of the damage, and the bleeding effect will finish them off. Preston was informed, and he blinked out of existence. He was gone, to the other side of Sanctuary. The next settlement I helped had me traveling to the Iron Plant building, the Fortress of the Forged. They were tough, which might surprise you, given my status as a god of the wasteland. Getting through the inside of the building was fine, nothing awful. Killing Slag took some trial and error. A missile launcher wasn't enough to kill him in one shot. Logic dictates that a fat man was the only viable solution. Even that didn't kill him instantly though. From his body, I retrieved the flaming sword that, in my hands, is probably the size of an adolescent boy. Pops let me keep that sword, Preston was happy, and the time had come to take back the castle. Obviously, when you're nearly 20 feet tall and you have a flaming sword, tactics mean nothing. You dive in headfirst like a bulldozer, slicing open chest cavities and searing the wound shut the instant you open it. I'm pretty much a doctor. I don't care if you're Richard Simmons himself. Melee weapons are never the ideal weapon to use against Mirelurks. The Flamer, though, that's an effective weapon. Stomping on all the little eggs to kill the babies before they're born was unpleasant, uninteresting, and unrelentingly boring. But after enough silent screams, the Mama Mirelurk woke up and tried her hardest to defend her children. She killed me, and now things get weird. I don't know why, but my death now crashes the game. My corpse shatters the interdimensional barrier, and everything collapses in on itself. Killing the Mirelurk Queen took longer than I think it ever has, which was weird considering everything that was going on. I'm talking several minutes here, several more than I would have liked. Every second matters. But the day was won in the name of me. I powered up the radio transmitter, spoke to Preston, and got back to work helping settlements. Someone's wife had been kidnapped by a bunch of amateurs. I legitimately felt like God running through the fens. It was great. The raiders inside Backstreet Apparel were butchered with care. I accidentally stole something from the kidnapped woman. She got mad, stood up, freed herself, and tried to kill me. I went there to free her, and she is now free of her earthly shackles. I'm a good person, trust me. On my way back to Preston, I found and battled a legendary enemy for the first time. Got nothing worthwhile from it, and Preston had settled himself at this place. Then I accidentally asked him to come along with me, and had a hell of a time getting him to leave me alone. My objective was now to help settlements. Preston wouldn't give me a new mission after I failed the last one. Luckily, I still had one in the backlog. Fun fact, I now tower over the Drumlin Diner. Mole rats died, I barely managed to set up the beacon, Preston gave me a new mission, and I went to help the settlers at Green Top Nursery. I couldn't talk to the guy in the house, he was too puny and tiny. Once I did talk to him, he sent me to the Dunwich Borers to clear out the raiders there. And goodness me, those raiders did fuck me up. I died, crashing the game a couple times. Looting the corpses of fallen foes is now mostly off the menu. Reaching dead bodies from way up here is difficult. Eventually I realized that I didn't have time to kill all the raiders outside. They weren't my target anyway, so I ran inside and began my slaughter anew. This being an excavation site played to my favor. Ceiling tiles were temporarily relieved of their duty of being my mortal enemy. Bedlam took his fair share of whacks to die. I upped my size to 2.6, left, told the settler my job was well done, got a new job from Preston, and went to clear Hangmans Alley. Easy peasy, I could practically hit everyone without moving, and I was almost as tall as the beacon when I was crouching. Preston was delighted. That bothered me. I led a super mutant suicider to Preston and let them embrace. Now I'm almost flying across the map. Scudder in Hyde Park put up a fair fight. I tried in vain to get a cool shot of me leaping towards one of the vertibirds to showcase my height. Had more size-related problems, trying to tell the settlers of a job well done. Preston was unfortunately still alive, and I was off to clear out the Taffington boathouse. At 2.7 times normal size, I was able to take out the blood bugs on the second floor without even going inside the house. Another beacon, who gives a shit, more Preston. Lame. Nordhagen Beach was next. Things are starting to get interesting now. I died again at the racetracks. Size didn't matter to an Assaultron. My target was ripped from the world. Quest complete, back to Preston, onto county crossings. They sent me across the world to secure Sunshine Tidings Co-op. I had to clear out all the rad roaches, ghouls, and stuff. Not a problem by any stretch of the imagination. What was a problem was constructing the beacon. I lacked the supplies, and scrapping everything in sight didn't give me what I needed. Then the quest completed. I didn't have to build the beacon, I just had to secure the area. I'm up to 2.8 now. Happy peasants, great. The Finch farm folk sent me to the National Guard training yard to clear out the ghouls. I took out the roof-mounted turrets with my feet firmly on the ground. Inside? Yeah, I was inside alright. The ghouls died. I had the key, and had to get past this locked door. But I could not reach the terminal to open the door, even when crouched. This was the beginning of the end. I temporarily reduced my size just to make sure it was a height issue and not an issue of the game being weird. I was right. I was too big, and there was nothing I could do about it. For a moment, I thought about using power armor to glitch myself through the fence. Once I got the power armor though, I discovered that with the height added by the power armor, I couldn't get low enough to open the door to the National Guard building. This quest was done. I immediately went to Cambridge Police Station to see if I could go down the Brotherhood quest line instead. Halfway to ArcJet, it hit me that I could just kill the Finches, fail the quest, and get a new one. I did exactly that. I killed Father Finch with Father Finch's father's flaming sword, got a new quest, and went to Revere Beach Station to kill some raiders. Killed them, and couldn't reach the door to get inside the subway station where the remaining raiders were. Another failure. I tried one more Minuteman quest. Clear out Outpost Zamingja. I did it. The raiders were 100% dead, and I couldn't reach the workbench to build the beacon. I'd reached an impasse in the Minuteman quest line. I reloaded a save to get back to Paladin Dance, still at the same size, 2.8 or 2.9 maybe. The two of us got into ArcJet. I blindly recovered a password and hacked open a door. Dance took care of the turrets in our way, and we went down to the engine core. Almost. Again, I could not reach the door. This quest was another bust. As I stood there, staring into the infinite void, it hit me that I could not proceed. The Institute hates me. The Minuteman quests can't be completed. I can't get up to the Pridwin without first getting the deep-range transmitter within ArcJet, which I can't do because I can't get into the engine core. To get back to the railroad and continue their story, I'd have to enter the door in the basement of the Old North Church. which I also couldn't do. My scale was set to 3.0. I was 3 times bigger than you're supposed to be, and it is at this point that the game breaks. The progress is stopped in its tracks. This challenge was a one-shot sort of deal, constantly going back to older saves and setting my size to whatever it should have been at that instance would defeat the purpose of this challenge, and with that, I did not beat Fallout 4 as Andre the Giant. If you enjoyed the video or learned anything, leave a like. Leave a dislike if you didn't enjoy the video or didn't learn anything. Thanks to the Champion tier supporters as well as other channel members for helping make videos like this one possible. Join the Mitten Squad Discord server through a link in the video description. Follow me on Twitter at Mitten Squad. My name is Paul of Mitten Squad. Have a wonderful day.